In the climactic last episode, Yuna brazenly enters Jun-wan's apartment without permission, typing in the passcode with unsettling familiarity. When Dohee confronts her about knowing the code, Yuna drops a bombshell. She and Jun Won were once engaged and planned to live there together after their wedding. This revelation hits Dohee like a thunderbolt. She suddenly pieces together the cryptic clues: the wedding photo of Yuna and Jun Won in the apartment, the scrunchie she discovered on her first day there, and Jun Won's vague comment that someone else used to live there. Dohee's expression hardens into a smirk as she walks out, slamming the door behind her. Just then, Jun Won emerges from the washroom, puzzled, asking about Dohee's sudden departure. Yuna's face lights up at the sight of Jun Won, but his reaction is icy. Yuna apologizes for her unannounced visit and mentions that Dohee seemed furious when she left. She then probes Jun Won about how long he and Dohee have been living together. Jun Won remains silent, prompting Yuna to criticize Dohee's behavior and remind Jun Won that he used to be intolerant of such drama. What has changed now? Jun Won, visibly irritated, simply orders Yuna to leave. Instead of complying, Yuna pleads with him to reconsider their relationship, stressing that they both need to settle down soon and that her family is pressuring her to marry. She apologizes for her past mistakes and begs Jun Won to choose her over Dohee. Jun Won, unwavering, firmly tells Yuna to get out. Feeling the palpable tension, Yuna finally exits, leaving a charged atmosphere in her wake. Yuna stumbles to the parking lot, tears streaming down her face, when Dohee intercepts her. Dohee, brimming with frustration, demands to know why Yuna is tormenting her. "What do you hate about me so much that you keep taking jabs at me like this?" she cries. Yuna, still upset, retorts, "It's just how I feel. You're just so annoying, a constant thorn in my side, and it drives me crazy." Dohee presses on, "But why? Why are you so bothered? Why do you covet what's not yours when you already have so much?" Yuna's voice rises in anger. "You're the one who's always had everything. My mom and dad always compared me to you, and now it's the same with Jun Won. You just took him too. That house was meant for me, not you. You don't belong there, I do. And mark my words, Jun Won will throw you away just like he did me." Dohee, exasperated, feels a headache coming on. She sighs and mutters, "When will you ever grow up, Yuna?" Enraged, Yuna lunges at Dohee. But Dohee is ready. She grabs Yuna, stomps on her foot, and slaps her hard. Tears of fury and pain fill Yuna's eyes as she slaps Dohee back. Suddenly, Jun Won appears and forcefully pulls Yuna away from Dohee. "What do you think you're doing?" he demands, his voice cold and unyielding. Yuna breaks down, sobbing and accusing Jun Won of always siding with Dohee. "She slapped me too," she cries out. Jun Won's face hardens with irritation. "There's a limit to what I can let slide, Yuna. Don't cross the line, unless you want me to reveal the real reason we broke off our engagement." Yuna, feeling defeated, leaves. As she goes, Jun Won turns to Dohee, trying to explain. "It's just a misunderstanding," he insists. Dohee spins around, her eyes blazing. "A misunderstanding? Was it a misunderstanding that the house was supposed to be for you and Yuna after the wedding?" Jun Won hesitates. "It's not that," he starts. Dohee cuts him off, her voice trembling with hurt. "To think I was so clueless, living with you, eating with you, happy in that house. Was the room I stayed in Yuna's?" Jun Won stammers. "Yuna lived there for a short while 2 years ago, but that's all. I didn't change the passcode because I couldn't be bothered." Dohee's anger flares. "That's not the point, Jun Won. This was supposed to be your and Yuna's house. The room I stayed in was her room. You should have told me all this before. I would never have stepped foot inside if I'd known." Seeing the futility of arguing, Dohee's expression shifts to resignation. "You know what? I don't care anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore." With that, she walks away, leaving Jun Won standing there, stunned and helpless. Jun Won is left speechless, shock written all over his face, as Dohee abruptly turns away, gets into a taxi, and drives off, leaving him standing alone. Later, Dohee recounts everything that happened to her friend, Nuri. In an attempt to lighten the mood, Nuri jokes, "Well, at least you win. You slapped Yuna more." Nuri then suggests, "Why don't you just date Jun Won if you want to, instead of setting up all these rules about relationships?" Dohee sighs, explaining, "These rules were my defenses. I thought if I set them up, I could break things off cleanly afterward." Nuri looks at her curiously, "Why do you start out by thinking about the end?" Dohee responds, "I didn't want to become pathetic. I didn't want to fall too deeply, and I didn't want things to get too weird if we broke up." Nuri shakes her head gently. "How does that work when you're in love?" Dohee nods, admitting, "You're right. The truth is, I become as pathetic as I can be." As she reflects on her relationship with Jun Won, Dohee realizes that he never once said he loved her. She confesses to Nuri, "I love Jun Won more than he loves me." Falling in love for the first time at 30 years old, it hurts so much. Tears well up in Dohee's eyes as the weight of her unreciprocated love and the pain of her first heartbreak settle in. The next day in the office meeting, Dohee's colleague, Young, suggests an exciting idea. Instead of making it a product that's always available, why don't we create a limited edition? People in their 20s and 30s love exclusive items. Let's make a spring edition lunchbox. Since cherry blossom songs are so popular in spring, it would be perfect to have a lunchbox that's only available during this season. Dohee loves Yang's idea and eagerly requests Jun Won to consider it. Without hesitation, Jun Won instructs Yang and Dohee to collaborate on the project. Dohee's mind races with ideas for the lunchbox, but she feels a pang of distance when she catches Jun Won's intense gaze. That night, Dohee heads to Jun Won's apartment to collect her belongings. She notices he isn't home yet and assumes he must be working late. As the clock ticks past 10 p.m., irritation creeps in. She suspects Jun Won is sulking about the previous day's events and is deliberately staying away. Frustrated, Dohee thinks all he needs to do is say he loves me, but instead, he's sulking. Eventually, Jun Won arrives home and notices Dohee's heels by the door. He gently knocks on her door and steps inside, finding her asleep. He softly touches her hair and whispers, "Good night," before leaving the room. Once he's gone, Dohee sits up, the scent of a woman's perfume lingering in the air. She instantly suspects Jun Won has been with Yuna, regretting her decision to stay the night instead of just packing and leaving. Little does she know, the reality is quite different. Jun Won's perfume scent comes from a gift he bought for Dohee. He had planned to give it to her but lost the courage. The next morning, Yang notices Dohee looking unwell and asks, "Are you sick? You don't look so good." Dohee forces a smile and replies, "It's probably just because I'm tired and didn't sleep well. Maybe I'll go out for some air to perk myself up." Yang, concerned, advises, "Don't stay outside too long, it's freezing cold out there." Ignoring the chill, Dohee steps out onto the terrace. Her eyes widen in shock as she spots Jun Won, a cigarette in his hand. Dohee is stunned to see Jun Won smoking, something he had supposedly quit. Jun Won immediately crushes the cigarette and tosses it away. As he walks past her without a word, Dohee can't hold back. "I'm the one who should be ignoring you, not the other way around," she snaps. As she watches Jun Won walk away, Dohee thinks about how her feelings for him only bring her pain and resentment. She realizes that if Jun Won can't change, it might be best to end things for good. Just then, Jun Won suddenly hugs her from behind and whispers, "I'll wait for you until you come back." Dohee notices that despite supposedly smoking, Jun Won doesn't smell like cigarettes. She glances at the broken cigarette on the ground and realizes he was just biting it, not smoking. This reminds her of the promise Jun Won made to her about quitting smoking, and it dawns on her that he is keeping that promise. However, this realization brings her little comfort. She feels a roller coaster of emotions, excitement quickly turning to disappointment, hurt by the smallest things. Love, she thinks, really makes a fool out of a person. Biting her lip, Dohee suddenly pushes Jun Won away. "I'm drained," she says firmly. "I won't be stepping foot inside that house again. I'll come to get my things during the weekend." With that, she turns and walks away, leaving Jun Won standing alone on the terrace, holding the weight of her words and their uncertain future. As Dohee walks down the stairs after her encounter with Jun Won, her phone rings. The call is from the hospital where her mother has been in a coma. Answering with a heavy heart, Dohee hears an unfamiliar voice delivering unexpected news: her mother has finally woken up from the coma. Dohee never considered returning to the hospital, but there is one question she has longed to ask her mother: why did she abandon her? This simple yet profound question has haunted Dohee for years, and now she has the chance to seek answers. Rushing to the hospital, Dohee is greeted by a chaotic scene. Police officers are arresting her stepfather right outside her mother's room. As she gets closer, she overhears the police informing her stepfather that he is under arrest for the murder of Baek Myung-suk, her mother who had just awakened from the coma. Stunned, Dohee listens as the police explain that her stepfather arrived at the hospital as soon as her mother woke up and then strangled her to death. She learns that her mother's coma was no accident. Her stepfather had deliberately caused the car accident to claim the insurance money, pocketing 100 million won. Fearing that her mother might reveal the truth, he took the ultimate step to silence her forever. Dohee is overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions: shock, grief, and a deep, burning anger. The answers she sought from her mother are now forever lost, and the tragic truth of her family's betrayal stands starkly before her. When Do-hee confronts her stepfather, she demands to know why he went to such extremes when he and her mother used to love each other. Her stepfather laughs mockingly and coldly responds, "There was never any love. I only married her because she was pregnant with my child. When she had a miscarriage, I realized I never would have married her if I had known. I told her to abort it, but she insisted on keeping it." Do-hee listens in stunned silence, unable to find words to respond. Her stepfather doesn't stop there. He sneers and tells her, "You're just like your mother. You'll probably share the same fate. She chased after this so-called love and got what she deserved. Take my advice, don't trust anybody if you don't want to end up like her." With those cruel words echoing in her mind, Do-hee leaves and heads to Jun-wan's apartment. When Jun-wan sees her, his face lights up with joy. He holds her hand, his voice filled with gratitude, "Thank you for coming back." Before Jun-wan can say anything more, Do-hee embraces him tightly and kisses him. The pain and confusion from her encounter with her stepfather still linger, but in Jun-wan's arms, she finds a momentary solace. Now that Do-hee is deeply in love, she's getting greedy. She wants to be the most important thing in Jun-wan's life. She craves for him to love her as much as she loves him. But Jun-wan, bound by his own limitations, can't meet her desires. Realizing this, Do-hee decides she needs to reclaim herself before she is completely undone by her feelings and before she gets to know Jun-wan too deeply. In the morning, with a heavy heart, she tells Jun-wan, "We need to break up. We have to put a stop to this." Taken aback, Jun-wan asks, "Where's this suddenly coming from?" Do-hee takes a deep breath and explains, "It's because I've come to love you. I want to be with you every day. I don't like it when you talk to other women. I want us to hold hands on the street like other couples, watch movies together. I want to hear you say you love me, but you can't even bring yourself to say those words. I don't want to grow weaker anymore. I can't be happy like this. I'm at the end of my rope and just want to give up on everything." Jun-wan, desperate, states, "But I don't want to end things like this." Do-hee, her voice trembling but resolute, replies, "If it's because of the inheritance, we only need one more selfie together for this month. You can send the one we already took as a backup, and I won't tell them we broke up." With that, she leaves Jun-wan's apartment. Unable to accept her decision, Jun-wan rushes out to stop her. He catches up and grabs her arm, turning her around. When he sees her tear-streaked face, he's at a loss for words. Do-hee immediately turns away again, her resolve unbroken, and walks away without hearing a word Jun-wan wanted to say. In his apartment, Jun-wan wrestles with regret and indecision. He wonders if giving Do-hee the perfume as a gift or expressing his true feelings earlier would have changed her mind. Meanwhile, Do-hee reflects on her decision. She resolves that she will cry for today, but after that, she won't let herself get hurt anymore. She's determined to move forward from her relationship with Jun-wan, despite the pain. At the office, Do-hee's boss surprises her with news. He wants to transfer her to the strategic planning team, believing her potential is being wasted in product planning. He explains that there's an opening in the team and Do-hee is the perfect fit both in capability and character. He gently reminds her that she can't remain a manager forever. Do-hee smiles gratefully and accepts the offer, signaling a new direction in her career. Meanwhile, an application form from Do-hee's department transformation lands on Jun-wan's desk. He smirks knowingly, perhaps sensing the impact of Do-hee's departure on both their personal and professional lives. Later that night, Jun-wan sits in his car when he notices Do-hee walking with Ian. Shocked, he watches them interact until Do-hee's phone rings. Seeing it's from Jun-wan, Do-hee ignores the call and continues walking with Ian. Jun-wan's call goes to voicemail, leaving him saddened at the thought that they might truly become nothing to each other. Do-hee thanks Ian for changing the bulb in her house, appreciating his help. Ian teases her, asking what she would do without him, but then questions why she didn't ask her boyfriend Jun-wan to do it. Do-hee responds matter-of-factly, "We broke up." Surprised, Ian asks why they broke up when they loved each other so much. Do-hee solemnly states, "I was the only one who loved him. That's why we broke up." Ian, who used to dislike Jun-wan, surprisingly offers a different perspective. He suggests that sometimes men struggle to express themselves, which leads to misunderstandings. He clarifies that he's not excusing Jun-wan's behavior but suggests it might be a case of different love languages. Despite his previous feelings, Ian expresses that he just wants Do-hee to be happy and respects her decision. The next morning, Do-hee is jolted awake by a vivid dream of the day her mother abandoned her, tears streaming down her face. She cries out, begging her mother not to leave her, and for a moment, she imagines Jun-wan's comforting whisper. However, she quickly realizes it was all in her mind, and she is alone in her room, grappling with her emotions. Every year on Do-hee's birthday, the nightmare of abandonment resurfaces with haunting clarity. Yet, despite the pain, Dohee finds strength within herself. She encourages herself that she is strong and must continue to endure and move forward. At the office, Miss Yang surprises Dohee with a birthday gift, and all her colleagues extend warm wishes to her. Despite the celebrations, Dohee feels a pang of sadness because Jun Won, sitting quietly in a corner, doesn't acknowledge her birthday. Later that night, Dohee arrives at Jun Won's apartment to collect her belongings. Jun Won insists on talking, but Dohee rebuffs him, stating she has nothing left to say and is ready to leave now that she has everything she needs. Jun Won, desperate, grabs Dohee's hand and asks why she keeps ignoring him. Frustrated, Dohee bursts out, shouting that she waited and waited for him, but after all this time, what more could he possibly say? She's already decided to end things, so she demands to know what excuses he has left. When Jun Won remains silent, Dohee confronts him about his earlier words, reminding him how he said love started to mean something to him because of her. She accuses him of sugarcoating his feelings and avoiding responsibility for his words like a coward. In a surprising turn, Jun Won hugs Dohee from behind, his wounded expression melting her resolve. Despite feeling like a fool for giving in, Dohee's phone rings abruptly. She answers, speaking to Nuri, promising to meet her after dropping off her things at home. Jun Won interrupts once more, stopping Dohee in her tracks. Anxious and emotional, he hands her a gift, acknowledging that she's not particularly fond of birthdays. Instead of wishing her a happy birthday, he hugs her tightly and expresses gratitude for her existence, genuinely thanking her from the bottom of his heart. Dohee reaches her apartment, still processing the emotional turmoil of her encounter with Jun Won. As she takes the lift up to her floor, she begins to open the gift he gave her. Inside the bag, she finds a perfume bottle, and as soon as she sniffs it, she recognizes the familiar scent, the same one she had smelled on that fateful day when she suspected Jun Won of being with Yuna. Alongside the perfume bottle, there's a letter from Jun Won, but before she can read it, the lift suddenly stops in the middle of its ascent. Alarmed, Dohee presses the emergency button, but there's no response. Panic sets in as she hears the distant sound of a fire alarm echoing through the building. Memories flash through her mind of the last time she felt trapped, in the office storeroom. This time, stuck in the lift, she tries to reassure herself that the building maintenance will come to her rescue. However, her hope is shattered when she hears voices outside and smoke begins to seep into the lift through small cracks. Fear grips her heart as she realizes the seriousness of the situation. On the other side of town, Jun Won sits with a heavy heart, contemplating his recent actions and the depth of his feelings for Dohee. Determined to make things right, he picks up his phone and calls her. When Dohee answers, he anxiously asks where she is, intending to go to her immediately. However, Dohee stops him in his tracks, insisting that he shouldn't come because she's not feeling well and doesn't think she can see him. Jun Won's worry intensifies upon hearing Dohee's strained voice and persistent coughing. Despite his concern, Dohee demands one promise from him, that he won't spend his life dwelling on bad memories. Confused by her sudden request, Jun Won tries to understand, but before he can respond, Dohee's voice breaks through the crackling connection. Surrounded by smoke and in a dire situation, Dohee confesses to Jun Won that the 4 months they spent together were the happiest of her life, and she truly loves him. Before Jun Won can react, the call abruptly ends as Dohee hangs up. Alone in the lift, Dohee reflects on her life, contemplating the sudden realization that death makes everything seem meaningless. Despite the fear and uncertainty, she finds solace in the fact that she made good friends and experienced the love she always yearned for. Most importantly, she's grateful she could express her love to Jun Won one last time. Deep down, Dohee admits she's more afraid of leaving a lasting scar on Jun Won's life than she is of dying in this frightening situation. If she could turn back time to that morning, she would tell him how sorry she is and that she loves him with all her heart. As Jun Won arrives outside Dohee's building, his heart sinks at the sight of flames engulfing the structure and the frantic activity of firefighters. The scene triggers memories of his mother's final moments, flooding him with fear and desperation. Despite the intense heat and chaos, Jun Won's determination drives him forward, pushing past firefighters attempting to hold him back. The firefighters try to restrain Jun Won, urging him to remain calm as they assure him that they are doing everything possible to rescue everyone inside, including anyone precious to him. Despite their efforts, Jun Won's anxiety and panic grow as he struggles to break free, his mind fixated on saving Dohee from the inferno. In the hospital emergency room, on December 24 at 9:59 p.m., doctors deliver the devastating news: Dohee's heart stopped due to carbon monoxide poisoning en route to the ER. With heavy hearts, they pronounce her dead. Jun Won's world collapses as he grapples with the sudden and tragic loss of Dohee, his love, unable to comprehend the cruel twist of fate that has taken her away.